So we know that around 150 at least individuals with dementia coming through our doors every month. So for those individuals, then you kind of extrapolate outwards. We think of all of our friends, our families, our carers, so we know that it's affecting hundreds and thousands of people locally. We know on a day-to-day basis the emotional impact, the physical impact this is having both on the individual and their family members. And part of our job here is to work with the hospital to do the level best we can to improve the environment, to enable our patients to feel that the hospital is a more safe place, a more welcoming place, and that we ensure the best possible standard of care that we possibly can.
We know that it can be very difficult when somebody has a diagnosis of dementia to know where to turn to, who do you go to for what, trying to navigate yourself around the system. So often we find that, people will call us as a sort of first call of advice,
yes,
really,
yeah.
And then we're able to signpost them. So I think people just really find that really beneficial and reassuring, essentially.
We both recognise that the hospital environment can be an extremely challenging one for people with dementia. It can be very noisy, it can be quite disruptive, quite chaotic, lots of different faces. I think when you add in dementia to that mix, for that individual, that can be a really overwhelming experience, and it can lead them to feeling quite frightened, very anxious, and that obviously poses both challenges for themselves, it poses challenges for staff, and it causes a lot of distress for loved ones and family members that might be coming in to visit somebody. So it's really important, I think, for us to do our level best to provide the resources, both for the patients but for the staff as well, to provide some distraction, to provide opportunities for relaxation, for quiet spaces, to help them to feel a bit more orientated within their environment. So we obviously have clocks on our list of things, dementia-friendly clocks. We've got our reminiscence room, we've got activity trolleys. There's a whole range of resources that we want to be able to provide to everybody that we look after here.
This appeal means a great deal to brighter futures. Dementia can, as we know, be stigmatised. It is a very difficult subject to talk about. For me personally, this has been so important to get the message out there, to get the message out to the communities that always support our charity so very well. The target of 33,000 is a lot. We appreciate that. We always are humbled by the generosity of our local communities. We know that 1 in 3 people are likely to be affected by dementia, and as a hospital we see 150 patients every month with a dementia diagnosis. So everything that we can provide that can make their stay more personalised, to respect them in a way that they feel safe and comfortable, I think that's something that we should all support.
So what we'd like to use the money for the Dementia Appeal for is to make a range of different changes and improvements. So partly that's going to be for environmental improvements on the wards. So it's more of an environment that's relaxing for the patients. I think we see every day that there's patients coming onto the ward with dementia, and it's very overwhelming, it's very overstimulated. There's lots of different faces, it's a change in their routine. So we want an environment that is more calming, relaxing, and more dementia friendly, essentially.
For me, it's then the story. It's finding a family that have gone through that dementia journey. And we all know that dementia journeys can be different. So I contacted Chris Piper, who I knew for many years, as I know the family had been through a great deal and lost Pat in April with mixed dementia, and they've been on a 14-year journey. Approached the family, and the family were brave enough and willing enough to share their dementia journey with us in Pat's memory and in a legacy.
I met Pat in McIlroy's in 1969, and I just fell in love with her straight away. And when we found out, we were devastated, to be fair. Over the years, you could gradually see it get worse and worse and worse. And you you didn't want it to happen. You wanted to help her. Just help her to get over it, but you can't. It gets people in the end, and it's so sad.
And I just knew there was something different with my mum. So the doctor finally recognised that it was dementia. Then we went to the hospital for an MRI scan. I took her to that, and it went from there. Then we were under the memory clinic. And she got diagnosed, and to hear that your parent has a terminal illness is horrid. But then, being like my mum, determined, I wanted to find out what we could do as a family to help her.
I remember when the journeys started, and we go to the meetings down in the church hall in Walgett, and when I first went there, I looked around at everybody and I thought, well, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? And after a while, you know that we're all in the same boat. We're all rowing in the same direction, as far as I was concerned. And I met some lovely, lovely people. It's a long journey. It's a long, long journey, and it's every day of the week. In the back of your mind, it's not gonna get better. It's gonna get worse. My family, especially Nicola, she looked into it more and seen, what could be done, what was behind the illness and everything else. And as a family, we started to get to know more about it.
So the experience of Pat, I think, was incredibly representative of so many individuals that we come into contact with here at Great Western. You've got an individual that is coming into hospital. They're already in a very difficult place. They're very vulnerable. Likewise, their family members are feeling equally vulnerable and uncertain about the future. Pat's journey through the hospital obviously was an extremely challenging one. I was very fortunate to come into contact with that family, and I feel very honoured and privileged that I was able to support them once Pat had left hospital, to be able to give the family further advice, information, support. They were able, I think, to achieve the maximum quality of life they could have with Pat through the period of time post her discharge. So that's an example. There are hundreds of examples of those types of stories day in, day out for us, and that's really why the message that we're trying to impart to everybody today is so important.
I think what we'd like to say to the Piper family is just, wow, thank you so much for sharing your story, because like Tim has already mentioned, Pat is representative of so many people that we come into contact with day in and day out, and so many people can relate to the Piper family. So the fact that they've had the strength and the bravery to benefit other families or other people in their situation is really, it's a real strong message, and it's a real purposeful message as well. So we'd like to say thank you to them for sharing their story with us.
And I guess we hope that positive legacy is that there's some comfort, hopefully in kind of months and years ahead for them, that this appeal is going to be able to benefit other people in kind of along the lines of Pat, really. All individuals, all with their own stories, but we know in the next 12 months we'll be seeing hundreds and thousands of people potentially, so hopefully they can take some comfort from the work that we're doing here and the results of the appeal.
The Piper family, for me, are a family I've known for 25 years, so this appeal is very, very personal to me. Chris has been a second father to me, so when I reached out for him and asked for him to share his journey, I wasn't sure he was going to say yes, but he did, and I'm so glad that he did, because we now are on another journey. Chris said to me after losing Pat, married for 51 years, and I don't know if I know another couple that, or will ever know another couple that were in love as much as those two. his compassion, his care is beyond anything I've ever witnessed. And I think the journey now that family has is Pat's legacy. He did say to me in one of the early interviews, he said, now Pat's gone, what's my purpose? What's the point in me now? And I'd never forget it. You know, it's, wow. You know, and we discussed it and we said, well, look, you know, let's tell the story. Let's keep Pat's memory alive. And then Nicola, her daughter, decided she would also share her journey. Obviously, the impact it's had on her, and what bravery. But their journey now is to help others. It's to support our appeal. It's to make a difference in the hospital setting, in the environment for others. They did say Pat would want to help others, and I know that from knowing Pat. She was such a caring lady, and her family were everything to her, and she'll want to help other families, and she'll want this dementia appeal to succeed, you know, and that in her memory is all that we can try and do to support that wish. You know, I just think this is one of the hardest things I've had to do, but we are reaching out to the community. They never let us down. Swindon people are fantastic people, and I know when there's an opportunity to support an appeal that's close to home, they will do, and we're reaching out to you. You know, there's hundreds of Pats and Chris's out there, hundreds and thousands, and now it's time to share the journeys, it's time to share the stories, and it's time to put dementia out there and to understand it, to respect it for what it is, and make a difference.
Well, you've got to reach out for other people for help. If you're not sure about anything, just reach out. Don't sit back and do nothing, because it's not easy, but there's got to be help out there. It's got to be. And like you're saying, you're doing this for the ward at the Great Western Hospital, and it's brilliant what you're doing. I hope this is going to help other people. I really do, because when somebody's got dementia, it's very hard for other people to recognise that they've got that illness. So people like myself and other people that's going through it, we're there to help in some ways, one way or another.
It's an illness, you are going to experience it, but if you could make it a nicer experience, one full of love and understanding what their needs are, then we've done our little bit for Mum's memory.